So here we are at Cannes at Palace Glacier. How you doing, Dennis? With Dennis Broe. Dennis, how you doing? Welcome. Okay. You're the author of a book we're actually watching its coverage. Birth of the Bridge.
Binge.
Of the Binge. Of the bridge, isn't it? It's like a bridge over troubled water. Of the Binge. And you're also here as a journalist, you're a teacher of filmmaking. But first of all, before talking about Cannes Film Festival, we want you to talk us about the binge. What is the binge? That's this phenomenon that invades us with the TV series.
Well, binge is a word that comes from it's a kind of it's excessive eating that's then applied to television. Yeah. So you can say and it's very common in the U.S. to talk about binging. Yeah. Binging means, you spent the entire weekend doing nothing but watching television. Oh. So like you binged on food, you binge on television. Supposedly, though, it's this is an acceptable form of binging because it doesn't have any after effects. Perhaps it does, So my book is subtitled Serial TV and the End of Leisure. And it suggests that what's going on is that some critics are saying that television now offers the viewer tremendous freedom because the viewer can pick whatever they want whenever they want. Sure. Well, okay, that's one way to understand it. The other way to understand it is to think about workers who are so pressed that they no longer can watch TV from 8 to 11 when they were supposed to. Now they have to watch TV from 11 to 2 at 11 at night to 2 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And the only time they can watch is when they're going from their first job to their second job, from their second job to school, or from school to home in order to collapse. So television is accommodated to that. Now, the question is, how does that, why am I talking about that at Cannes? Well, Cannes this year is really under the shadow, the specter of the streaming services. And the streaming services are coming. And everybody knows it, including Pierre Lescure, who's the director of the festival, who in his interview with Libération, that's what he wanted to talk about. And he said, we really have to figure out where we stand in relationship to these things. Because they're here. Amazon and Netflix, of course, the famous controversy is that Netflix cannot have films in the competition. Almodovar actually came out in favor of that last year. And this is a kind of ploy by the French theater owners. Essentially, probably it's something that regard action is not going to work. I've always thought that the better thing to do is to tax Netflix and Amazon and use the money to support European filmmaking. And just like Canal Plus is taxed or has to contribute and then creates money.
And every television network in Europe usually has to be.
Yeah, so why don't Netflix and Amazon have to be taxed? Anyway, the thing here though has to do with Netflix, Amazon, and the coming streaming services are even bigger. Time Warner, AT&T, and especially the one they're all scared about, and the one Pierre Lescure is talking about is Disney. Because Disney's going to have everything. They're going to have Marvel. They're going to have, they just merged with Fox. They've got a huge catalog, and they're here. And all of these services, plus Hulu, plus Apple, plus Facebook, are here buying in the market. So next year when we come here, the face of films and the face of Cannes may have changed. We don't know.
For sure.
So it's definitely a kind of thing that looms in the background. Meanwhile, there are great films here this year.
Yes, you come every year since maybe 2010?
Yes, I've been coming since 2010.
What are the media you're covering for? Because I think we've also seen an article of yours on the website, but what are you doing while you're on the festival?
I'm relatively independent. I cover for 2 radio stations. I cover for WBAI and the Pacifica Radio Network in the U.S.
Okay.
They're the for a show on BAI in New York that then gets circulated across the U.S. I cover for Art District Radio in Paris, and I cover for 2 websites in Great Britain. One is called Culture Matters, a kind of political website, political cultural website. Another is called Crime Fiction Lover, where I write about the 5 best crime films at Cannes.
Yeah.
So,
Culture Matters, a very interesting one. The others also for sure, but that's where I saw your article. And a part of the importance of the streaming services, and I don't know if we're gonna be binging films or if we binge films here at Cannes. What are your thoughts about this year's festival?
my thoughts are that the filmmakers here are really kind of responding to the fact that the world is, as we say, going to hell in a handbasket. You know? And they're responding in a number of different ways, which I find all of them interesting, although some of the critics didn't. The first 2 films that were shown here, the response was sort of metaphorical, and it was kind of apocalyptic. The Dead Don't Die.
Sure.
And this very wonderful Brazilian film called Buckaroo. Buckaroo is an absolutely astonishing film by the guy who was here 3 years ago with a film called Atlantis about an older Sonia Braga who the greedy landlords are trying to get out of her building. Okay, so this is Brazil 3 years later under Bolsonaro, and this is the north of Brazil. This film is talking about, which is always the rebellious part of Brazil. That's the African part, and that's the part that's known for its slave uprisings. And in fact, the film is co-produced by Oscar de Guius. And he is a sort of member of Cinema Novo, who's been here before, and he did a film called Quilombo, which is about the history of those uprisings. At any rate, this film, Buckaroo, is about a town that's lost its water supply because a corrupt politician has decided to dam the water supply and divert it to another town.
This is supposed to be science fiction,
It's
but
supposed to be
maybe
science fiction,
not so much.
Yes, this is apocalyptic, and also the town no longer appears on the map anywhere. And it turns out it's really a kind of version of a famous American film called The Most Dangerous Game, where hunters pursue human traffic. And the film is really talking about these inequalities between north and south in Brazil. Sao Paulo, which is the business center, versus the north, Recife, the poorer section. But it's also talking about the inequalities north of the border in the U.S., which are also preying on Brazil, as there's was a huge U.S. contingent sponsoring Bolsonaro. Dawn of the Dead was really not well liked here, but I liked it, I will have to say, because I think that Jim Jarmusch, yes, he's pulling out, he pulls out the political aspects of the zombie film, and he really emphasizes it, actually, and I think that's really interesting. The creation of the zombies is through the fracking of the polar ice cap. Which is actually happening. And who's to say that we all aren't becoming zombies because of it? Then there were also some sort of. There's also another really interesting American indie here I saw called Bull. Watch for this film. Bull is about a young girl who
we both like it.
Yes, we talked about it and both liked it. A young girl who in the Texas Panhandle around San Antonio, outside of San Antonio, who's searching for a path through life and is lost, and she finds this African American ex-rodeo rider who now spends his life just when the rodeo rider gets bucked from the bull, he runs out and the bull sees him and chases after him so the rider can escape. So he's sort of like kind of at the end of his career. But the girl likes riding. However, it's not the film that you think it would be. Which is a very smart choice by the director. You think it's going to be, she's going to triumph, she's going to get on the bull, she's going to be a great rider, and those are what a lot of American films are like. That's not what happens.
That kind of the same scheme always.
Yes, she barely makes it to even acknowledge that this is what she wants to do because she gets lost in the morass of Oxycontin and the Oxycontin, whole epidemic in the U.S. So she has to surmount that before she can even have any hopes or desires. And that's a very realistic portrayal of life in the United States right now. So I like that film a lot. Loved Ken Loach's film, Sorry to Have Missed You. Sorry to have missed you. It's really about the thing I'm talking about in the book, what's called sort of the digital, or really in this case, the gig economy, where you don't have rights anymore, you just have a gig. And as soon as the gig is over, the employer lets you go.
Sure.
And the employer doesn't have to do anything. It doesn't have to pay for your health care, doesn't have to pay for your days, you get no days off. All you are is exactly at the moment when you show up for the job, and it's about this worker who signs on to this gig economy, and also his wife, who's a part of what's called in Britain zero-hour contract. The zero-hour contract is you are only paid for the moment you show up when you're directly engaging what's called the client. Only the client in this case are old women who she's trying to help. Yeah. And she's a person who wants to help people and to care for them, but within the gig economy, caring and helping people is not part of the thing because there's less of a profit in it. So you call them clients in order to divorce them from their sort of human capacity. It's a very, very good film. And let me just call attention to another film for your audience, which is in the market here. Yeah. Which is really excellent. It should have been in the Cannes Festival.
I was going to ask you about it because it's about like Thomas Piketty's ideas.
Yes.
I don't agree very much with Thomas Piketty's ideas, so I want you to convince me.
Oh, okay. All right. So this film is called Capital in the 21st Century, and it's a film from New Zealand. It's got a lot of backing. I think it's got some Arte backing from France as well. Oh. It is a really well done documentary, and what its claim and what Piketty's main argument is that there's that inequality has gotten so bad in the contemporary world that rather than moving forward, we're moving backwards. And that what the contemporary world looks like right now, because of all these corporations who don't pay taxes, and because more wealth is flowing to them throughout the world, is it's beginning to look like what the world looked like before World War I, when there was still the aristocracy. Yeah, it was World War I and World War II, and World War II finally, which sort of destroyed all elements of the aristocracy. But Piketty is claiming that because of, or the argument of the film is, because of the way that the rich are not paying taxes, and because of the way that inheritance tax is now sort of being canceled, we're moving back to the aristocracy, and it's beginning to look like the world before World War I, which is a sort of scary claim.
Sure.
And what did you find that you did not like about Piketty?
Oh,
there are things not to like.
The general theory about what he talks about how economy works, and that doesn't really convince me. I'm not into taxes like you. I understand there are some necessity that some corporations like maybe Netflix and maybe someone like that get into taxes, but I'm wondering why Europe hasn't been able to produce that kind of maybe inventions, maybe new enterprises we're watching in the internet, like Facebook, Google, and Netflix. And we need some climate to understand better, to produce some innovative businesses that compete with them. So
yes, okay, that is.
I'll have to watch anyway the documentary you're talking about, and I like to contrast. And what I like most of cinema, I must tell you, that is when cinema talks to you about, films talk to you about some things you didn't like or you watch differently, and then you can watch other way. Yeah. So, for instance, for me, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, it's an amazing story that talks about some things I didn't know, some things I didn't agree, some things I maybe agree now, but a different point of view. And in Cannes here, we can watch some different points of view.
It's true.
If they let us into the theater rooms, that's another problem. But here we can do
without
it.
confiscating your bags.
Oh my bags and my cup of coffee. Dennis, I don't know. My cup of coffee can do, but well, they'll know. So
I will say there's a great. They in the film.
capital in the 21st century.
Yeah.
They have some great clips. And there's one clip, I don't know what film it's from, but it's Basil Rathbone as the king, as the French king. And they approach him and they say the peasants don't want to pay their taxes. And he said, well, that's crazy. Why not? And they say, well, they say they're the same as you. And he said, well, that makes no sense at all. That's senseless to think that they're the same as me.
Oh.
And the aristocracy never paid taxes.
Yes, I know.
The aristocracy never paid taxes in the 19th century until the state became larger. So I don't think just to answer your thing, I think what Piketty might say is we're not talking about taxes on people who are creative. We're talking about taxes on people who are really living off of the wealth of other people.
Yeah.
That's where the tax money should be increased. Anyway, let me just go on to a film I really love, which you heard it here first. And I'm not that great at predicting these things, but I think the top prize is going to go to this film. It's by Terrence Malick, and it's called Hidden Life.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of film that sort of can win at Cannes because it really speaks to people at a very human level.
Yeah.
It's about a conscientious objector in Austria in 1939 who refuses to heil Hitler.
Yeah.
and where it leads him. And of course it's not going to lead him anywhere good. But it's got a lot of Malick's really interesting stuff. The first part is the gorgeous sort of, kind of autumnal wheat, that looks like
Heaven's Gate?
Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's a very, very stirring film, just about one man sort of standing up and saying he doesn't agree, and in light of the Trump presidency, it really does seem to be aimed at it because, from the outsider, from thinking people, you'd have to think things are just going crazy. We have the new axis of evil, Iran,
yes.
and Iran. Now it's Iran and Venezuela and North Korea. They're trying to provoke an all-out trade war with China. They've abrogated all of the treaties with Russia. For a thinking person, this might look a little bit like Hitler in Hitler in the 30s, and that's what this character sort of stands up against. And he does it quietly, but because he does it, everyone tells him that everything you do will never have any effect, and yet what we watch is all of the effects in all the different ways on all the people who he comes in contact with. It's a very quiet, powerful film, and really, in a way, maybe one of Malick's best. I think maybe I like a lot of them, but my favorite is The New World, but maybe it's almost as good as The New World, actually.
Oh, that's great news because we need Malick on his best shape.
Yes.
Though he doesn't never appear in public. He doesn't ever appear in public. And thank you.
Yes. Sure. One more.
One more. Okay. We have time.
One more. Okay, it's by Diao Ying, the Chinese director of Black Coal Thin Ice.
Oh, I really love it.
I love that film, and this film is not quite as good, but it's pretty strong. It's called Goose Lake.
Yes.
And it's a noir. It's a noir film. It has all the classics. The first line is, in a dark night with rainfall,
sure.
A man takes out a cigarette, puts it in his mouth, and the first line is, "Have you got a light?" Okay, so we know, somebody says, we know we're in film noir, right? But the fact is, it's not just a recreation of film noir, it's really a sort of way of talking about Chinese society by showing a number of different things, including by showing the absolute sort of similarity between the cops and the gangsters.
Completely, and all they have their gatherings.
Yes,
and
one has a gathering, then the other has a gathering.
Yes.
They both look like thugs. They both mow people down, and he's just absolutely adamant about continuing this comparison throughout the film, which is very, very interesting and strong. Thank you.
Sure, I really like it too. So, we'll have to read or reread your book, Birth of the Binge.
Yes.
We have it. And Dennis, we have a great festival in front of us.
Thank you, you too.
You actually live in Paris. You're a teacher.
I do. I live in Paris, yes. I taught in the Sorbonne. Now I'm basically writing,
Yeah.
and I just finished my first novel, which is called Left of Eden,
Okay.
which
so,
is about Hollywood. It's a noir novel about Hollywood in the 1940s and the blacklist.
Oh, I do know about it, all the subjects. So, if we walk through Paris, there are lots of chances that we get to meet you. So, or we get to meet your works. Dennis,
Okay.
thank you very much.
All right, thank
and,
you.
And well, let's go to the theater. There's now a film we have to watch.
Yes,
Thank
there
you.
is. Okay.